All right, here we go. Welcome to another session of Lens with Advanced Design. I am your host, Hector Silva. Today we have a wonderful guest that is joining us. Her name is Alessandra Corona, and she's an industrial designer based in Chicago. She spends half of her time designing consumer products for brands at her studio, Big Bright. She also spends the other half of her time developing her sustainable sleepwear line called River Left. Alessandra will be branching into fashion from industrial design and has a lot to figure out. We're very excited for her to talk about her brand and how she's doing things to figure things out. Here is her story and her systematic approach for figuring out how to do new scary things. So we are very excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here. And for those who are tuning in, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please send them in the Q&A. I will then integrate them into our conversation and get those questions answered. Alessandra, how are you feeling?
Feeling great. Thank you for having me on here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got a presentation. Alrighty. So today I'm going to talk about how to learn what you don't know. When I started my career, someone very wise told me that you don't know what you don't know. And really, the biggest way you learn what you don't know is by doing, but there's some other ways to figure it out also. And I figured that that would be really helpful to share with you guys. So first of all, I'm going to talk about who I am. As Hector said, I'm Alessandra Corona. I spend half my time developing products for brands with my independent industrial design studio, Big Bright. I've designed a wide range of consumer products from organization accessories, cosmetic brushes, and cosmetic accessories for Real Techniques and Eco Tools, infant toys for Bright Starts and Baby Einstein, and an array of tools and automotive tools as well. So today I'm going to be talking about a lot of the learnings that I've had from branching out from industrial design into fashion design via River Left. So River Left is my small sleepwear line. The original concept came in 2018. I've had really bad migraines since I was 4 years old. And in 2018, they got really bad. So I was preparing to have migraine surgery. And before the surgery, I was going to be recovering at my mom and my stepdad's house. So I wanted to wear something that felt kind of chic and nice to lounge around in while I was recovering, because I didn't want to just be in an old t-shirt and sweats. I wanted to feel chic, because it did this whole surgery and being sick situation just didn't feel good, right? So I went to the store with my mom, and we went to a few stores, and we tried to find a nightgown that we felt would be nice to wear around. And these were our options. So it was either hyper revealing or basically your grandma's muumuu, and there wasn't much in between. So I was like, okay, this needs to exist. So at first I was like, oh, maybe I'll use my design expertise and design a nightgown and have a tailor make it, and then I can have one. And then my friends and family were like, wait, we kind of want that too. Why doesn't that exist? So I was like, all right, well, I'll make 100 of them. And then once I got into manufacturing, I was like, oh, wait, to reach MOQs, I'm going to need 300 or more, or 500. And so from there, it kind of snowballed. And now we have 5 pieces plus an eye mask. So it's 3 nightgowns and a cami and short set. And then, of course, you got to have an eye mask as well. I had stumbled upon a gap in the market. So nothing out there really existed that was quite the same. There's some other sleepwear brands, but nothing that felt like a fashion moment at home. And I think that's really important right now too with COVID, which obviously I did not see coming, but the whole option to have a fashion moment at home, and even have something even if you're wearing yoga pants and a nice top during your work at home, to change into something a little bit different at night that feels more luxurious and comfortable. Um, so I want to tell you a little bit about Riverleft before I get into how I figured everything out. Our goal was to provide customers with a better option for sleepwear. The items are heirloom inspired and they're classic and flattering. They're luxurious and sexy, but they're not overtly sexy. Some of the things that were important to me, this was obviously a passion project. I still was very much doing my industrial design consulting work. So if I was going to be spending time doing something else on the side, I wanted it to be exactly like I wanted it. So ethical manufacturing and sustainable materials were very important. I think it definitely doubled the amount of time that it took me to develop the products, but was definitely worth it. We wanted to use soft and silky textiles so that they would actually be comfortable to sleep in. And we wanted to design them to outlast the season and be worn and treasured for years. That was a big part of our sustainability push also, because obviously something is more sustainable if it has a longer lifespan. And part of that also is that we wanted the silhouettes to be classic and feminine and flattering so that they were attractive, so you'd actually want to wear them. So here's our final nightgown. This is like basically the all-star of the collection that has been shared the most on the internet. We are launching pre-sale in November, and still a lot of work to do between now and November, but I'm figuring things out. So when I talked with Hector, when we originally talked about me talking on this lens session, I was trying to figure out things that I thought would actually be helpful to others. So I was like, well, I have had to get really comfortable with learning how to do new things. And that was definitely my biggest fear in the beginning. A lot of people, like, their fear is what actually holds them back. And a lot of that fear comes from the unknown. Like, I don't know what's going to come up that I don't know how to do. And that causes a lot of stress, right? So, but I learned that as you figure out how to do more and more things, you get less scared of the unknown because you're like, oh, I already had all of these like challenges that I had to overcome and I did fine. So it's just like, okay, I'm going to be fine. So here's an actual like systemic approach to figuring out what you don't know. You start by figuring out how you get from point A to point B. So I actually made a full list when I started, where I was trying to figure out, okay, exactly like what steps do I know that I need to take? I know there's going to be some things that are obviously left out because I don't know that they exist, right? Like before I started, I didn't realize I was going to have to make UPC codes. I didn't know what an RN number was. I didn't know like all of these like legal things that I was going to have to end up doing. But I knew that enough of the process to kind of figure out where to start. Because if you don't do that, like you're not going to do anything if you don't have like a plan for how to start. So once you make that list, don't worry about the gaps yet. You sort it out. So I literally color coded things, which I'm like, I'm a sucker for organization and like highlighting things and actually getting things down on real paper. So I listed out the things that I knew, the things that I kind of knew how to do, like was familiar with them, and then things that I straight up did not know what to do. And then I prioritized the things I didn't know how to do. Step 2, aggregate the skills you already have and apply them. So obviously I'm coming from this background in industrial design, and I was able to apply the basic industrial design process to the process of developing a sleepwear item, right? So like all of that design thinking that goes into your normal industrial design process went into these pieces, which I think was actually like a really valuable piece that will set apart our products from like the rest of the herd. So here's an example of something I pulled from my ID background. This is our initial mood board. So I knew that I wanted the products to have a Parisian aesthetic. I knew that I wanted to tie in like that luxury hotel feeling. So it kind of elevates your living space without having to leave your home. So you're like transported to like, you know, a more chic environment just by changing your clothes. And definitely was inspired by these silky materials and covered buttons. Um, and here's one of our other mood boards I thought it would be fun to include. That was just a Photoshop. Figuring out our colorways was another piece. We're definitely involving a lot of Pantone chips per usual. And this was applied to both our visual branding and to our the pieces themselves, the fabric of the pieces. Sketching. So another part of the ID process. I sketched a ton of different options and they changed and changed as I went through the process. At first, they were a little bit, I felt like the designs were maybe a little bit too short and erring on the side of like a little too sexy. So I made them longer and I really just played around and figured out exactly what I wanted by through the sketching process. And our final designs are like pretty close to what our final sketches were. Technical drawings. So I'm used to doing technical drawings for ID. So this is how I really worked with my pattern maker to figure out basically to communicate exactly what I wanted and like how far it fell, like what the proportions were. So I would design the sketch and then also provide a technical drawing, and she would kind of take it from there in terms of then making a full pattern, printing it out, and building a prototype. Um, Another area I pulled from was design intent specification sheets. So I had a lot of experience in my past with uh, you know, talking with manufacturers and explaining exactly how I want a product to look and that kind of understanding of how to avoid mistakes in manufacturing. So making sure technical specifications cover all your bases. Um, so here are our tech packs for our hang tag, and which maybe didn't need to be 3 pages, but just in case I wanted to include every bit of information I needed to. Um, and then our specifications for our brand labels and our care labels. So now I'll move on to step 3, which is very important. So you need to make sure that you have money to hire people for what you really need professional help with, right? So I wasn't going to be able to do a lot of the things that a lawyer would be able to or an accountant. So I knew I needed to have those, like that was non-negotiable. And I also knew I needed a pattern maker. And the pattern maker was great. I would, as I talked about earlier, I would send her the sketches and the technical drawings, and then she would make the printable pattern and prototype. So this is like a program that she would know how to use, but I wouldn't know how to use. Like I have a ton of CAD modeling background, and one day it would be great to learn how to use the software for building clothing patterns, but definitely wasn't there yet for our first round of product development. So here's some pictures. Oh, it looks like my videos aren't working. Let me see. That's okay. So we had 8 rounds of samples. And as you can see in some of these photos, I was the model for most of them. And the pattern maker would come over, she would bring the prototypes, and I would try them on. You can see this this second picture right here was one of our first prototypes, which came out like a clown costume. So as you can see, it's really important to like make prototypes and see how they are in real life. But it took a lot of rounds, and she would come over, we'd put them on me, we'd pin them up, we'd change them, we might like cut part of it off to see how it looks while we're there. And this was an ongoing process that took about probably a year and a half, which hopefully next time it won't take as long. See, did I skip anything? Nope. All right, so step 4, which is arguably the most important part, is gather your resources. So this includes family and friends, your college network, deep Google searches, YouTube, trade shows, online articles, and podcasts. So first I'm going to talk about family and friends. Even if your family and friends don't have the exact skill set, they may have a skill set that can be applied. So, for example, one of my close friends is a financial analyst and another is an accountant. So I would have them take a look at and I trusted them, right? So I would send them my spreadsheets for costing and budgets and projections, and they would like it and see if I had made any mistakes and give me guidance and like let me know if I tripped up on anything. And then I have another friend that works at a chef company. So they make the uniforms for a lot of like bars and restaurants. And she was incredibly helpful in the process. She helped me with a ton of stuff like about where to find fabrics, what trade shows I should go to. I would send her pictures of prototypes when they came back from China, and she would let me know if the finishing or stitching was good or not. And was able to really teach me so that in the future I'll be able to do it by myself also. Um, I have another friend who's super stylish. I have quite a few friends that are super stylish. So definitely along the way, like at fittings, I would like FaceTime them or I would take pictures and send it to them later. And I'd say, hey, would you wear this? Like, for me, I personally like would prefer a nightgown over a cami and short set, but I knew that cami and short sets were really important to my friends. Um, so I was like given that advice way early on. And so I'm really glad I developed that set because it's actually turned out to be a cami and short set that I would like totally wear. But I probably wouldn't have thought to do it if my friend hadn't recommended it. And another thing that was important about the family and friends is that you have to like ask them, right? Like I wouldn't just like go to them over and over again. Like from the beginning, I said, hey, I'm working on this project. I think it would be really helpful, like that your expertise would be able to help me out with this, but I might be pretty needy. Like I'm gonna have a lot of questions and I want you to tell me if I'm being annoying or like let me know it when like, there's too much on your plate to help me out. And all of them wanted to help, which was like really awesome. I really wouldn't have been able to do it without like all the family and friends that gave me guidance and like helped me out through the process and were super willing to help. And I hope to really be able to return the favor in the future. Um, Another thing is don't be afraid to seem dumb, right? Like a lot of us don't ask questions that we think are dumb questions. And especially to your like friends and family and network, like those are the people that you can ask those questions to without feeling judged or anything. So ask all the questions because like that's how you're going to avoid mistakes. So another network that came super in handy for me was my college network. So I'm a SCAD grad and they have a good alumni network. So I actually emailed the alumni network and said, hey, at the time I was really struggling with figuring out what sustainable fabric to use. So I had tried a lot of fabrics and was finding that they were like too wrinkly or were too transparent and or too expensive. So I wanted to find somebody who knew a lot about sustainable textiles. So I thought, hey, maybe there's a professor at SCAD that might be able to help. And when I emailed the alumni network, they weren't able to connect me with the professor, but they were able to connect me with a grad student that's final project was on sustainable textiles. So she's actually the person who ended up convincing me that I really needed to move forward with silk. So that was an invaluable part of the process. Other resources that are important: deep Google searches, YouTube, trade shows, online articles, and podcasts, but I'll go over those a little bit more. So to circle back to friends and family, I'm gonna make this, I'm gonna stop my share really quick so that this loads, because clearly it's not loading. 1 second here. Sorry, guys. Okay, now we're back. Okay, give me a second to click back to the screen we were just on. Because I think you'll like these videos. Okay, first I'm going to show you this one and then I'll go back to what we were talking about. This is a video of our fit model and one of the pieces. At the end of our, when we were really close to being done with the final prototypes, we wanted, we've been trying them all on me. So we wanted to make sure that they actually worked on a fit model. So we hired one to come over. It was a socially distanced. We all wore masks, but it was really important to get that confirmation that they were going to work on other people. So back to friends and family. Here's a fun video. So this is my boyfriend and my best friend in my parents' house doing the only shoot that we've done so far. I actually had gotten a call from Vogue 4 days before, and they had said that they'd found me on Instagram and wanted to, put me in their September issue. So of course I wasn't gonna say no to Vogue, but we didn't have any photographs that were gonna be good enough for Vogue. So this was in the beginning of the COVID outbreak. So it was in those first 2 weeks. And everybody was super distanced. We didn't want to take any risks. So we ended up doing the shoot in my parents' house. My boyfriend agreed to be photographer, and my best friend was like, I've done a little bit of modeling, so I'm cool with trying this out, but I'm not sure how they're going to turn out. And they turned out awesome. So I was really happy about that and very grateful for my friends to be able to pull it together in such short notice. My boyfriend is also my creative director. He's also our logo designer and photographer. He's in the other room playing Tony Hawk right now, so good for him. Our logo stemmed originally from this key that I found in a hotel in Paris. And because we wanted this Parisian aesthetic, we wanted to tie that into the logo. So as you'll see here, the logo has the key in the background. And it has this beautiful typeface. You can see the typeface in the images to the left. We didn't end up moving forward with. And here's our logo on some tag mock-ups. I printed out a bunch of tags just at home on my printer and uploaded the options to my Instagram for River Left. And I actually had my followers comment on which ones were their favorite. So that ended up leading us to our final design, which is all the way on the right. And it's got a debossed River Left with the logo printed behind it. And it's this awesome thick cardstock. I'm super happy with how it turned out. The next resource that was super helpful is Shopify. So Shopify is a website builder for e-commerce. I had experience building websites, but nothing for e-commerce before. So their platform was super easy to use. This is not a Shopify plug, but they were super helpful. They also have a learning resource centers called Shopify Compass, and they have all these courses and workshops, including one called Grow Your Business with Instagram, which is one of many courses that I took for them. They're super good courses, ranging from obviously like 40 minutes to like 3 hours. So a big part of basically why I'm talking about this is because there's so many resources that are being thrown at us all the time. And a lot of times we put it on the to-do list, but don't end up doing it. And you really have to actually use the resources you have. Like, having all of these at the tips of my fingers ended up being incredibly helpful. It's actually how, what I learned in that video was that I needed to start my Instagram way before I even had product. So I started building my Instagram for River Left about a year ago. I still don't have very many followers, but by using hashtags and trying to get my name out there, we caught the attention of Vogue, and that's how I got called to be in their September issue. So here's one of the images that was taken at my parents' house in the Vogue September issue. And yeah, so the next part of research I want to talk about is deep Google searches. Deep Google searches. So this is how I figured out a lot of answers to things that I had trouble figuring out from any of my other areas. So for example, I needed to figure out how to do order fulfillment. So I did, and there were some pieces of order fulfillment. This was way before I was ready to even start talking to a order fulfillment provider. But I knew there were some things that were going to come down the pipeline that I needed to know how to do, that kind of related to order fulfillment, like importing into the US and like getting UPC codes and a bunch of different things that I was able to find by using the resources on several different fulfillment centers' websites. So a lot of companies will post like resources or blogs, and if you just scroll through their blogs, there's so much good information in there. Another deep Google search I did was for vendor manuals. So the key to this is actually typing in PDF when you do the search. I was able to, basically the supplier contacted me and I had already placed my order, and they messaged and were like, hey, will you send over your vendor manual? And I was like, what is a vendor manual? But of course I didn't want to directly say that to them. So I was like, oh, of course, I'll send it over in the next few days. So then I had just like a few days to pull together a vendor manual. So I ended up reading like 15 vendor manuals that I had found PDF versions of on Google, and was able to pull it together, and with the help of some friends in the industry, figure out exactly what guidelines I needed to give my vendors, and the information that would enable them to like label things correctly and make sure everything makes it through customs on the way to the US. The last few resources, YouTube, obviously super helpful. Learned how to create costing sheets there and how to cost a garment. Trade shows and podcasts are really great. So I actually save my favorite podcast episodes to playlists in Shopify so that I can go back and listen to them again later, which like I probably only re-listen to like half of them, but it's still nice to know that they're there and that like I'm not going to have to research for like some obscure podcast I listened to 2 years ago because I already have it saved. Which brings me to organizing your resources. Organize your resources. Like make an extreme Google Sheets document and put everything in it. This has been my saving grace through this whole process. So all of the resources that we just discussed, as you find them, put them into a document and organize it, right? So I have all my resources in this Google Sheets, and it's broken down by basically resources that didn't fit into any other category, marketing tools, so links, basically that has like links to different marketing courses and articles that I've come across, throughout the past couple of years. And a lot of times I would stumble upon something where I was like, I'm not ready to learn about that now, but I know I'm going to need that resource later, or I think I might. So I go ahead and save it into the Google Sheets. And then it's just like a keyword search away once you need it. So this is definitely really important. That's actually how I had gone through the Fulfillment Center website, and I was able to save out, one of the things was UPC codes. And then I got a message saying that my manufacturer was going to start making the stickers that go on the outside of the poly bags. And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't made my UPC codes yet. But it was like, it's all good because all I had to do was click a link in this big Google Sheets file. So that was incredibly helpful. So the last step is doing. The best way to learn is by doing. You've heard this plenty of times before, but making mistakes is inevitable. And I feel like having all of these other resources kind of helps you out along the way. It makes it a lot less scary. So some of the things I had to learn by doing, one was our poly bags. If you follow River Left on Instagram, you'll have seen this mistake a few weeks ago. I don't have that much experience laying out graphics for packaging, but I knew enough about it. So I laid out all my graphics, and I'm a one-woman show here, right? Like, I am doing the vast majority of this by myself. So a mistake was made. Instead of writing, this bag is made of recycled plastics, I accidentally wrote, this bag is make of recycled plastics. But I was able to catch it literally the day they started printing. So it was like a very inexpensive and easy fix. But that's definitely one of the things where it's like, okay, now I know that I need to have another eye check my copy, because once you look at something over and over again, it's just too easy to make a mistake on it. Another area of learning was definitely fabrics. So obviously, from the get-go, I really wanted to use a sustainable fabric. And I was resisting using silk for a long time because it's expensive. So I looked into all these different fabrics like lyocell and viscose, and eventually found this, blend fabric that I loved. And we worked with it for like over a month. And then we were like, okay, we think we're going to move forward with this fabric. And we had already made a few prototypes out of it. And then I was like, I had gotten the care instructions from the supplier, and they said that it was just like, you can machine wash it and hang it to dry, and it's great. So I was like, I'm just going to check this. And so I machine washed it and hung it to dry, and it shrunk by like 2 inches and was incredibly wrinkly, and you weren't supposed to iron it. And also, who wants to iron a nightgown anyway? So we had to totally nix that fabric and start from the get-go again. And it was a very stressful part of the process, but definitely a learning experience, and something that ultimately led us towards going ahead and moving forward with the washable silk fabric, which I'm glad that we ended up making that decision. Some of the things that I had to learn by doing were a lot easier because I just applied my learnings from industrial design, like all of our care labels and brand labels, exactly how I wanted the covered buttons, and our hang tag. I'm going to stop share for a second to show you one of our garments really quick. All right, so this is one of our nightgowns. And from an ID perspective, I really wanted them to last a long time, right? So a lot of nightgowns have very thin straps, like half as thin as this, which this looks pretty thin, but usually they're like even smaller. And that's where nightgowns wear the fastest. So I did a bunch of research, went to like vintage boutiques and looked at their nightgowns and saw like where they were wearing the first, or areas where I saw they had been mended. And it was usually like on the strap or on the strap connection. So we also ended up doing a double connection of the strap. So it's attached like all the way down rather than just like in one spot. So these will last a lot longer. Another thing we did was we chose to do French seams. So that's where the seam is fully finished on the inside, which is a lot more comfortable. And it also makes the garment last longer because the edges like can't catch. So was definitely applying my industrial design problem solving to these nightgowns throughout the whole process. Back to the presentation. So now I hope that you know how to know what you don't know. Making mistakes is inevitable, but once you get over obstacles again and again, you build a resistance to the fear of not knowing. And that's how we ended up where we are. And hopefully we'll sell a bunch of nightgowns. Thank you.
Awesome. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you just gave us a presentation on business 101.
Well, I never had that. So hopefully this whole nightgown thing is my solution to a business degree.
And I think that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. You know, as you started this business, there's a lot of things that not only in ID, but there's a lot of things that even design school didn't teach you to prepare for this business, at least the design aspect of it. What are some of those things as far as the design? Because I did see a lot of, now you're dealing with soft goods, right? So there's a lot of soft goods related things that you don't learn in school that you had to probably teach yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually, um, I went to SCAD and I felt like they had a pretty good curriculum on industrial design, but soft goods was definitely missing. I ended up using a lot of my knowledge that I learned I took a really random, well, it felt random at the time, class in, it was like, you know how sometimes you have to take like one class out of your field to get like whatever credits you need. So that class ended up being a handbag making class. So in that class, I learned about a bunch of, we were making leather handbags, right? But I learned how to use a sewing machine. I learned different sewing methods, finishing methods, actual like different kinds of stitches you can do. So that was super helpful. It was also something that like I got a little bit of that learning when I was working at Kids too, because they had soft goods. I wasn't directly working with soft goods, but like other people around me were. So there was like a little bit of exposure there, but there's definitely been like a lot of learning in that area since starting this project.
Yeah, and you know, you obviously have your prior business, which is you're a consultant and you are working for yourself, and then you started this side hustle that is now a full-on business. And you know, it's a very entrepreneurial undertaking that you're doing with these both design businesses. And did you ever see yourself in this position? Um,
Uh,
yeah.
I don't think I saw myself in this position. It's definitely a lot to juggle because I'm still very much doing my design consulting business as well. So figuring that out has been a challenge, but I've definitely gotten used to it in the past 2 years. I always had a love for fashion design, and I think some of that has come out in my industrial design with like working on cosmetic accessories and stuff. We did a lot of like the same trend research, but you know, I didn't ever think it was actually feasible for me to have a business in the fashion realm. So I'm glad it ended up happening.
What are what are your major goals and dreams for River Left? I feel like if you start a fashion brand, you got to dream big, right?
Yeah, so I definitely have big dreams for River Left. At first, I felt like I was planning more for like, what if it fails? But now I'm, like over the time, I was like, oh gosh, I have to prepare for if it's really successful. And I've found a manufacturer that would be able to ramp up production if they needed to. I really want to be the new, like, I want to be where millennials go for sleepwear. I don't think that exists yet. I think a lot of millennials are turning away from Victoria's Secret, and the other options out there aren't, don't fit that style niche that everybody likes. Your home is more on display than ever before with social media. So I think it's kind of like the right timing for a business like this. And so I'd love to be maybe not as huge as, I won't aim as high as being the next Victoria's Secret, but I definitely want to be like a larger sleepwear brand and have a whole, selections of items. But also keeping in mind that the items that I design are not seasonal, right? Like I'm going to be able to keep these nightgowns in my selection for a long time because they're not like trend driven. They're very much classically designed. So lots of things to juggle.
That's fantastic. I think one good thing about you kind of going through all this is, well, Vogue, you got featured in Vogue, and that is a huge kind of immediate validation that you're on the right path, right? And that must be like really exciting, because you know, a lot of businesses don't get this type of exposure in their first year or their second year, right? It takes time. You got to build credibility. You got to build a good product, right? And you're already kind of checked that box off, which is quite an accomplishment.
Thank you. I hope it wasn't just a fluke. I'm hoping that once we actually launch, we'll, you know, be in other people's hands, I'm really hoping we take off and, I'm always like skeptically excited, so, but it was really exciting to be in Vogue.
Fantastic. I have a couple of questions to ask from the audience, and one question is from Eric, and he wants to know what sustainability advantages does silk have over other materials?
Oh, I love this. So silk is obviously it's renewable because like the silkworms are like, it's not like you're just using something from the planet. You can grow or create more silkworms. And it's the most, it's the strongest natural fiber. So that's great for sustainability also because it lasts a long time, right? And increasing the life cycle of an item is a much more sustainable option than a lot of the fast fashion that happens.
Mhm.
It's also our silk in particular is more sustainable because it has a blue sign certification. So that means it's been checked for a bunch of nasty chemicals that can be used in the dyeing process.
Mhm.
Um, the factory that we work with has some incredible capabilities. It's actually a LEED certified factory. The roof is covered in solar panels. They have like a small test garden of mulberry trees, which is like awesome, like literally right outside their facility. Mulberry trees are the trees that like the silkworms live on. And they test out all of their like sustainable farming practices on that little plot of land before applying it to like the bigger plots. So that's really awesome too. Getting on kind of a tangent because I get excited about the manufacturing side of things, but yeah, I'm sure there's other things that I'm forgetting about right now, but those are the top ones.
How did you even like connect with how'd you even find that manufacturer? Are they overseas? Are they domestic? I mean, like that sounds like a dream, manufacturer to work with.
Yeah, I like honestly sometimes I'm like, pinch me, this is too good to be true, but which usually if it's too good to be true, it's not good, but these people like totally check out. These are the people, all of the like sustainable ethical brands that I follow use these people. So I ended up getting connected to them by just reaching out. And my MOQs are a lot lower than the MOQs they usually take. MOQ means minimum order quantity for any like students in the crowd. But they kind of like threw me a bone and were like, we think you could grow with us. So we'd love to work on this initial collection with you. And I think I'm really fortunate to have found them.
That's so awesome. Yeah, that's really big. I think a lot of manufacturers and a lot of companies usually are looking for like the bigger, fish,
Mhm.
and they don't give the small businesses an opportunity to really develop. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic for you. That's great news. Um, Here's another question, and this is from Anonymous. How much will your product cost, or what is the price range?
Yeah, so the price range is around 200 to $350, which is understandably a little bit high. And I'm hoping that we can bring that cost down as we produce more items. But right now, it's just we're using the most sustainable factory and the most sustainable silk. So hopefully, I think our customers will, you know, be comfortable with that price because they know that they're very high quality and meant to last a long time. And it's like a nightgown you can wear like every night. It's not like something where you can wear it 5 times and then feel like everybody's seen you in it. So
Plus, just to be clear, the product that you're designing and putting out there in the market is a premium product. It's not, um, it's not at the level of you can go to Target and get it and have it accessible. You have to go to your website, and it's a very premium experience.
yeah, absolutely. And there's so much design that went into this. This is like, um, you know, it took a long time to develop. So
That's great. Here's a really random question, and this is from Ariel. Maybe it's not random because you did kind of introduce yourself and you started your presentation with this. But her question is, do you still have migraines, and or did surgery completely get rid of them? When you had migraines, how did you deal with them as an industrial designer? So I think that's pretty valid. I think
yeah, no, I'm comfortable with that question. So I have, what was the first part of the question?
if you still have migraines, or did you have surgery to completely get rid of them?
Okay. So, I had a surgery that, in layman's terms, is nerve decompression surgery, and it has made. Before I got the surgery, I had to go on medical leave from work because I was having migraines daily, and it was. I really couldn't live a normal life. I had to go on medical leave from work. It was really bad. So I was kind of one of those situations where I was like, I have to do something. Um, so the surgery was like a godsend. My migraines are so much better. And if you have any questions about the surgery, like DM me on Instagram and we can chat about it. It's not for everybody. It's pretty invasive. They have to go in like through your eyelids, and it's actually like a 3-part surgery, and I've only had one of the 3 parts done. I'm planning to have the second part done next year, but since it's an elective surgery, obviously didn't want to do it during a COVID year. um, so yeah, before I got the surgery, I've been dealing with migraines since I was 4 years old. So I've, got used to how to deal with them in my day to day life. Making sure all of my bosses understood that I had a chronic condition. and forgiving myself for days where I just couldn't work, or where my migraine was too bad. And the way you kind of make up for it is by being really diligent in all of your work, so that you have good credibility, so that when you have a migraine, people are understanding of it, because they know that you're always doing your best, and that you're going to put forth good work even if you have to miss a day.
Absolutely. And I think that just comes with, your well-being and kind of taking care of things, because you're going into a very competitive and a very stressful environment as a designer,
Mhm.
not just in design. Generally, when you work and have a career, it's very good to really pay attention to your health, or else you'll have to pay attention to it later by taking care of your illness, right? So
Yeah,
thanks for sharing that.
totally.
Thanks for
Totally.
I do have a couple more questions, and then we can kind of wrap this conversation up. One question is, you did talk about how you leverage your friends and your family to really help you. And I think a lot of us who might have access to a really big circle of friends and family probably don't take advantage of people's other, fantastic skill set that they have. And I think in a world where we don't want to be bothered or we don't want to be asked for favors, I think, especially when you're starting a small business, I think it's essential. You hear all these stories of how these really big companies started in garages, and they started, with the help of, a very small loan from their father or whatever, an investment, and then they grew up to be, the Apples and the Amazons or whatever. And I think it's okay to ask for help. I would love to hear about your thoughts about that, asking for help and reaching out.
Yeah, I think um I think asking for help is like more than just useful in your business life, right? Like asking for help and being able to help others is like a really important part of human connection, right? All of the people who have helped me in the past year, I have strengthened my relationships with so much. Like it's been such a joy for them to help me, and for me to be able to return the favor when I can. Like my friend who has been super stylish and has looked at all the pictures of the garments I sent her, who was willing to be my model in the last minute, she ended up getting to be in Vogue, and that was really exciting for her, so it's like and I very much plan for in my future being able to help others, and return the favor, like what comes around goes around. And I know that that's going to be important to me, and I'm going to make sure that that happens, so I don't feel like guilty about asking for it now. And also, like, if someone's like, I don't have enough time to do this right now, then you say, okay, I understand, like that is totally fine, like I was just asking, you know what I mean? So
Absolutely. And then the last question to kind of wrap this wonderful conversation is, you obviously went to school for industrial design. You went into the industry, you were designing products, and now you are kind of switching, you're dabbling in fashion design. And I hope that we have this conversation in 5 years from now, where let's see what River Left is. And if it does become a really big brand, is it okay for you to, kind of not end up in industrial design and follow your passion? Is that okay with?
well, I anticipate if River Left takes off, there's still probably going to be some industrial design in that journey, right? Like we might end up doing sleep sprays where I need to design the bottle, or
Mhm.
who knows what products we could come up with. And also, I think that it's only natural for your career to what you study in school, you don't necessarily have to stick to, right? Like it's a stepping stone for a career, and you never know where your career is going to end up going. Like you don't necessarily have to work in your major. So like I wouldn't restrict myself to that, but because I like doing industrial design so much, I can't see that like not being in my future at all. Like I just love making stuff.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a really good point. And, you know, yeah, a lot of us are pretty hardcore at industrial design and, want to do that for the rest of our lives. But don't be afraid of evolution, and be open to kind of see where that takes you,
Sure.
because you don't know if the market also changes and it requires you to adapt. So it's good to kind of think about that and reflect on it, and see where it takes you.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Alessandra, thank you so much for being on Lens, and thank you for those that joined us and sent those questions to us. We really appreciate it. Our wonderful conversation has been recorded, and you said that your product is going to launch in November.
Yes, we don't have an exact date yet, but follow us on Instagram, sign up for our emails, and you'll be the first to know.
Fantastic. And we'll attach your social media links when we post this on YouTube. Please follow her and follow her brand, Riverleft. You are doing amazing work. Thank you so much for being here. It's always a joy to chat with you.
All right. Thank you, Hector.
Hey, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.